Welcome to my presentation. My name is Matthew Vetrini, and this is for my Principles of Organizational Leadership and how I have grown as a leader. I specifically chose this title because it is key to who I am, and part of that derives from my faith as a Soto Zen Buddhist practitioner. So, to begin with, I primarily focus on, or I have found, although there are other leadership styles, they all come down to me as being a servant leader. And key to that, as you can see from the quote from the Greenleaf Center, is that I focus upon growth and having people be the best that they can be. And the big part of that is serving the community to which we all belong. And going deeper into that, what I see my role in that as not just as administrator, but more is being the lead learner within that community. I have to not only envision how my students are going to be learning, but envision further as members of my staff are learning to become better teachers and better members of staff, and how we all learn in that situation. Key to this, I believe, is the building and maintaining of community. And for me, as a 27-year veteran of teaching English as a second or foreign language, is especially making connections with the families of those students, because I often feel that they are marginalized or just completely forgotten about. And the way in which I choose to do this, especially since joining this program, is the establishment of standards of excellence, as I have read about or even just learned about as they work. I had not really thought about what these standards were. They were always in my mind, but Green really made it come together with me in his discussion of the standards of excellence. Now, getting to what it means to have these standards of excellence, you must define them. And as again, Green pointed out, a school leader has to know and be able to practice the art of leadership in an effective manner. And the way in which that is done, really in any context, either in a public school or an international school, where I currently am in Japan, you have to adhere to a certain set of standards. And as was put forward in Green's, or I should say cited in Green's work, are the 10 professional standards for educational leaders. Now, I won't go into the full scope of those, but very clearly each one of those focuses on the standards by which a leader can objectively measure themselves on whether or not they are working for the, coming back to being a servant leader for myself, as whether they are serving the community as best as possible, because that is their job. Their job is not just to enact various policies. Those policies have to be driven by a purpose, and those purposes have to be guided by a clear standard. Now, included in that is to know about the complexity of learning. Now, as you'll see in this next slide here, what I mean by a complexity of learning is having a growth-oriented learning leader, as mentioned in Lehman's 2016 book about the brain science, what every principal needs to know. Because I think not only are we driven by a purpose, we have to have a deep grounding in a scientific sense. Not just in a standard sense, but in a scientific sense as well. And as a part of that, we need to also come together to understand it is to have a growth leadership. We must have a common community purpose. All right. That middle quote there is actually from my own paper in the deep dive, where we had is there a common community purpose, well-grounded educational leadership. And how do we do that? We do that how I do that. And I think all leaders should come together, is looking at not only do they have a purpose in their leadership, but they ground it in their standards, in their purpose, and in their faith as well. And in faith in the largest sense, that they have a grounding. It is not just a tick box. But coming back to this, understanding the complexity of learning, as in Wang's 2018 paper, all decisions that are made, not just of educational leaders, all have their basis in the brain, because that's where we make our decisions. As much as even when we feel our decisions, those feelings come from our minds. So we need to be clear that we understand how our minds work as best as possible. As you'll see in this next, as I've mentioned previously, the purpose is the key. And I come back to the first, actually lead of the title of my presentation, taking from the 5 remembrances within Zen, which I reference here from the Eiruji Sutra book. My actions as a leader, or really anything in my life, are the ground upon which I stand. Okay? And where I stand is my primary purpose as a school leader is to make sure everybody succeeds. Primarily you're there for the students, but I look at it that everyone, as much as possible, succeeds in the community. And coming down further, that I make sure that I give the teachers the professional opportunities through training and just general information about what they need to be successful themselves, to make sure the students are similarly successful. Now, what I have seen with my cohort, although it has really only, I'm just beginning here, is that I have seen that, especially through the online discussions, I can see the true diversity of community, of experience and faith, but we are all working towards the same goal, the betterment of our students and the community to which we serve. Right? We are driven by a desire to serve them, right? And not only makes us leaders, but that makes us thought leaders. That makes us public intellectuals, right? That's what we need to make people understand who we are as leaders. We may be the driving force, but we are the driving force to make sure everyone does their best. To sum up, right? We have to be, as this title comes from what's called the Metra Sutta, or the Sutra of Loving Kindness, and this is also what drives me as part of my faith, that we have a clear purpose as leaders. And again, how do we do this? Or at least how do I do this? And I believe all of my cohort does this as well, and how I will treat things in the future, and how I will apply my knowledge and application of the skills that I learned both in class and outside of the classroom, which is also key as an educator, as a thought leader. Again, is I have an adherence to the standards, as I've mentioned previously. I base those upon now, although I always had the conceptions in my mind, was those 10 standards as mentioned in Green's work. Furthermore, in Lehman's work about what principles you need to know about, I believe there is a definite stream in leaders who use the brain as their basis. What is referred to in some circles, in some professional development groups, as neuro-leadership. And I think the key to that, as I show here in my slides, is mindfulness. It is the awareness of who we are and who we serve and how we serve them. And that is what I see moving forward on my faith and values and beliefs. I think is that is my leadership journey, to make sure I am grounded in what I believe, why I may do it, and who I am doing it for. And that is who I am as a leader at this time, and that's how I hope to be. I just hope to expand that further so that I have a clear ground upon which I stand. Thank you very much.